Hello everyone! Today you will learn how to find for the area of a square, rectangle, triangle, parallelogram, trapezoid, and circle. But first, let us define what area is. The area of a figure is the number of unit squares that cover the surface of a closed figure. Area is measured in square units such as square centimeters, square feet, square inches, and so on. Okay, these are some examples of some basic figures and their areas. Now again, we will learn how to find for the area of these basic shapes, starting with the square. Going back to the definition of area, area means the number of square units that cover the surface of a closed figure. So to find for the area of this square, let's count the number of small squares inside this figure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And that is 16. Therefore, the area of this square is 16 square units. However, counting the number of squares inside a closed figure takes time. There is actually an easier way for us to be able to find the area of this square. As you notice, this square has 4 columns and 4 rows. By simply multiplying 4 and 4, we will actually be able to get the number of squares inside this figure. So 4 times 4 will give us 16 square units. That means to find for the area of a square, we simply have to multiply the measure of its one side to itself, since all sides in a square are equal. Again, the formula that we will use to find for the area of a square is side times side, or s squared. Next, let's have the area of a rectangle. As you can see, this rectangle has 4 columns and 3 rows. So that means if you multiply 4 and 3, we'll be able to get the number of square units inside this figure. And 4 times 3 is equal to 12 square units. Therefore, to find for the area of a rectangle, we simply have to multiply its length by its width. Okay, so in a rectangle, not all sides are equal. That's why this one is, the longer side is labeled as the length and the shorter side is labeled as the width. So again, to find for the area of a rectangle, we just have to multiply the length and the width. Okay. Next, how about if we have a parallelogram? So in this parallelogram, if we cut this figure here, or if we cut a right triangle on this side and connect it to the other side, you'll actually form a rectangle. And we know that in a rectangle, to find for its area, we simply multiply the length and the width. However, this figure is a parallelogram, so the dimensions will be labeled differently. Instead of calling this side as the length, we will call it as the base of the parallelogram, and this one here is a height, or the height of the parallelogram, because originally this is how a parallelogram looks like. So to find for the area of a parallelogram, we'll simply multiply its base and its height. Take note that the height of a parallelogram is not this slanting side here. Instead, it should be a perpendicular line to the base of our parallelogram. Okay, so for example, if we have here a parallelogram whose height is 5 centimeters and whose base is 8 centimeters, to find for its area, we simply multiply the base and the height. And we know that 8 times 5 is equal to 40. This time, the unit that we will use is square centimeters, since the unit of measure is given as centimeters. If the unit of measure is not given, then we will just simply say it's square units, just like in our previous examples. Now, let's find for the area of a triangle. Okay, let's focus first on this parallelogram. If we cut this parallelogram this way, we'll be able to form 2 triangles. Okay, and let us take note that again, this perpendicular line here is what we call as the height, and this side here is what we call as the base. Now, if we will cut this triangle here, we'll have this one. Okay, and recall that in a parallelogram, to find for its area, we simply multiply the base and the height. Now, take note that this triangle here is actually 1/2 of the parallelogram we have earlier. So that means to find for the area of a triangle, if area of parallelogram is base times height, we will have area of a triangle is equal to 1/2 base times height, or base times height divided by 2, because again, this triangle here is just 1/2 of our parallelogram here. For example, if we are given a triangle which is 10 centimeters by 6 centimeters, okay, we'll have to multiply the base and the height, that is 6 centimeters times 10 centimeters, then divide it by 2. Okay, and that will give us 60 centimeters, or 60 square centimeters divided by 2 is equal to 30 square centimeters. Okay, so the area of this triangle is 30 square centimeters. Now let's try the area of a trapezoid. So a trapezoid looks like this one. Okay, we have here two different bases. The top is labeled as base sub 1 and the bottom is labeled as base sub 2. And again, this perpendicular line here, or this line which is perpendicular to our base, is called the height. For us to find for the area of a trapezoid, we simply have to add its bases, then divide it by 2 before we multiply it by height. So for example, if we have here a trapezoid whose bases measure 4 feet and 9 feet and has a height of 6 feet, to find for its area, we'll have 4 feet plus 9 feet divided by 2 times 6 feet. Okay, so we'll have 6.5 feet times 6 feet is equal to 39 feet, or 39 square feet. Okay, therefore, the area of this trapezoid is 39 square feet. Now, let's take a look at the area of a circle. If you cut a circle into small triangular figures like this one, okay, and make it really thin triangular figures, and combine those triangular figures this way, you will actually form a rectangle. Okay, in this case, it does not look like a rectangle because the triangular figures are somehow thick. Okay, but again, if you cut it into thinner triangular figure and combine them this way, it will actually look like a rectangle. Okay, and in a rectangle, we know that multiplying the length and the width will give us its area. So same thing goes for this one. If we multiply this side here by this side here, we'll be able to get the area of this circle. But instead of calling them length and width, we will label them differently. Take note that this side here is actually the radius of our circle. If you will go back to the circle itself, this one, this point here up to this point here, by definition, is actually called a radius. Okay, so in this case, this side is labeled as a radius. Now, the distance around this circle, if you will recall, is what we actually call as the circumference. Okay, so this side, including this side, is actually the circumference of a circle. But again, in finding for the area, we do not multiply two sides or two lengths of a rectangle. So instead of having 2 pi r, which is equal to the circumference of the circle, we will only get half of it, which is pi r. Okay, so again, this is pi r, including this another pi r here will give us 2 pi r, which is the circumference of the circle. But we do not need the measurement of the other side. What we only need is this width here and this length here, which are now labeled as radius and pi r. And by multiplying these two, we'll be able to get the area of the circle. Therefore, area of a circle is equal to pi r squared. Okay. So, for example, if we have here a circle whose radius is equal to 7 inches, to find for its area, we'll have 3.14, which is the value of pi, times 7 inches squared. Okay, so we'll have 3.14 times 49 inches squared. That is actually equal to 153.86 square inches. Okay, so that is the area of our circle. And that's it for our lesson for today. Thank you for listening.